Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Lisa Hill and Shawn Berry, and we're here today for Title Thursdays. And today we're going to have an interesting show. Shawn Berry and I were in a transaction. We got it closed. However, it was a mess. It was
the transaction from hell.
Yeah,
is what it was.
And it actually has gotten us both to the point to where we're thinking we want to open a margarita stand in Key West and just blow this real estate stuff off. But anyway, so today's show is going to be about, do you have a good team? And I can tell you that everybody thinks that the lender, it's just, working with the buyer. If you don't have a good team, and quite honestly, we would have never gotten that deal closed if I hadn't had Shawn Berry with me, because his persistence and his expertise in this whole situation was just amazing. So we'll go in. We're gonna talk about it more. But so okay, Shawn Berry, who are the major players?
Well, and thank you for those nice words. I did not pay her to say that, by the way. You were amazing as well. A lot of realtors would have given up at that point. So I think both of us together, we got that thing done. But as far as the real estate team is concerned, from what I see on title, you have three major players. You've got the agents, both the listing agent and the buyer's agent. You have the lender, and then you have the title company. And so, like you just said, a lot of people think the lender only works with the buyer, but a lot of what lenders do affects the entire transaction. Everyone from the seller to title, and even perhaps the seller of the home that the seller wants to buy, which that became an issue here as well. So it can really kind of go out this way.
It's a domino effect.
It really is.
Yeah.
I think in this one, our seller had to delay their closing because they needed funds from this deal.
Absolutely.
And then our buyer, in anticipation of closing, moved out of their home and rented it to tenants in the UK. So they were homeless. Our sellers were living in an RV. And it was
basically homeless.
It was a giant mess. So everyone was really happy. This one closed almost exactly 30 days after contract.
I think it was 32 days
32,
after the original closing date. We were supposed to close June 15th, and we closed on July 17th. And quite honestly, it was a ridiculous situation, and we'll go into that more. But
yeah, so, and actually back on your team, it's important to work with people who you know, and especially when it comes to realtors and lenders. So for realtors, you each have your specialty, whether it might be international buyers or sellers, or you work with short sales, or in a foreclosure situation, or an investor situation. With lenders, they also have specialties. So it could be a lender who is familiar with high net worth clients or self-employed borrowers. Each different subset of borrowers will have their own hurdles as far as lending is concerned. And we saw this play out in our deal. So it's important to ask questions of the lender.
Right. And this, I was the listing agent, and I did ask questions. However, I called the lender, which I do on every offer that I get in, and just to ask them about the buyer and find out, a little history. And so this particular lender answered his phone the very first time I called, and I asked my questions regarding the buyer, and he assured me that this buyer was ready to go, that everything was good, they had tons of money, and their credit scores were high. And that was not the truth. I'm just going to go out and say. Even though the truth was, it was a good buyer, they did have good credit scores, and they did have a lot of money, they had a very complex financial history, background.
Well, he was involved in several different businesses, so his income was not just from one business. It was all flowing in from different places. And lending, you have to source those funds, and that can become a problem with self-employed borrowers?
Yeah, so quite honestly, when I asked him if this guy was approved, and he assured me he was, in reality he was not. And even though he was a very qualified buyer, the approval letter that guy gave me was not even worth the ink that was written on the paper.
Correct.
He was not approved. He should have never promised a 30-day closing, because there was no way we were going to close it in 30 days. And he knew that. And instead of being upfront and honest, and honestly, probably should have never even issued an approval letter until he had gotten all of this guy's information and gotten it with the underwriter. He should have never gotten that approval letter. So anyway, we're going a little off here. So, but like Shawn said, we as agents, we have to ask a lot of questions. And especially when you're using a lender that you've never heard of, they're a small company. Not saying that that small companies, I mean, I'm all about that, because I'm kind of a small individual company myself. Shawn is also. I'm just saying that, we need to go a step further if you're dealing with a smaller individual company. So I know that agents work with lenders. What about title?
So a lot of what I've said before is that title works a lot in the background. So if you think of the transaction as a duck in a lake, you see the duck and everything looks great, but underneath the legs are kicking, and that's what title does. And the whole goal is you don't want to see what title's doing, because it would probably freak most people out as how much goes into it. So with lenders, what starts our process is we get what we call a lender title request. It's a form, and it tells us a lot of information about the transaction. So we get the buyer's full legal name, how they want it on the loan documents. We get the loan number, the loan amount, the proposed closing date, and also how the lender wants their name to appear on the title insurance policy and also the mortgage and note. And so the lender title request also asks for things such as a title commitment. So that's what we order from our underwriter. And the title commitment basically tells me as the title company what I have to do in order to close the transaction successfully. So I call it the roadmap to closing. So literally, if you follow number 1 through 8 or 1 through 20, whatever the deal calls for, you're going to be fine.
Okay.
So literally, as in the background, we have our title commitment, and as things get satisfied, we're checking it off to make sure that we hit everything we need. The lender will also ask us for what we call a closing protection letter, or in our industry, it's just a CPL. And that is our underwriter's promise to the lender that I, as the agent, am going to satisfy all the closing requirements.
Okay.
And if I don't, then the lender can sue my underwriter for any damage. And then, of course, they're going to sue me. So we always make sure that we follow what the lender needs. Also, our lender title request is our indication to order a survey on the property. So, and I say that if necessary, because, for instance, you can survey a single-family home. That's easy. But for me, I live in the 24th floor of my building. A surveyor is not going to survey a 24th floor unit. So if it's a condo, you don't have to survey. But everything else you typically do, unless there's a prior survey. But that's kind of getting outside the bounds here. So once all that occurs, we as title, with the lender at least, we kind of sit back and we wait until we get the clear to close. And then at that point, the lender sends us what they consider to be their final closing statement. So it'll have all the lender fees, origination, appraisal, credit report, tax service fees, all these fees. So we take their fees, we merge it with our fees, and then we send the lender what we consider to be our final closing statement. And at that point, we're in a process called balancing. So we're literally trying to get it to the penny to match. Once that happens, then the lender will release the closing package, which we then print out and deliver to the closing table. So then after closing, we then submit certain documents back to the lender. And they're not going to be reapproving the borrower for the loan. What they're doing is making sure that what they consider to be critical documents, such as the note, the mortgage, the deed, the loan application, and the closing statement, that they've been signed appropriately. Once that happens, we get a funding number. And that's my authorization to release money where it has to go. So at that point, I can record documents in public record. I can pay off the seller's mortgage. I can wire the seller's proceeds.
Okay.
So when I say earlier that what the lender does can affect everybody, everything I just talked about happens in the background.
Right.
And one hiccup, like we had here, we were sitting here until 8:30 on Tuesday trying to close this transaction because the lender, we were having an issue with them. So they really, like you said, a domino effect. That's actually very true. And that's the point of having a good team around you. Is, you know, make sure it's somebody you trust.
Right,
and
absolutely.
And a lot of these things I just spoke about as agents, meaning the realtors involved, and the buyer and seller, they should have no clue that any of this is going on.
Right.
And that's how we try and do it. The only time that you as a party to the deal will hear from us is if there's an issue.
Right.
And that's usually when alarm bells start to go off.
And that's what happened on our situation. I'm just going to go a little off topic. Well, not really off topic, just to kind of tell you how it can go off the rails. We were supposed to close on June 15th. The seller, up to this point, we had absolutely no idea that there was an issue.
No.
Shawn had received a CD from the lender on the Monday before. This is now Thursday. We thought everything was good. The seller was coming in because they were leaving to go on their vacation on Friday, so they could literally sign their documents the day before. Seller was sitting in the title company, and I get a call from Shawn Berry's office that says, "We have a problem." And I was like, okay, thinking that it would be something that we could just get done. We don't have any closing documents from the lender. Oh, well, now, okay, that's a problem, you know, because we're sitting here and the people are here and there's no closing documents. So I proceed to call the buyer's agent because, quite honestly, I'm the seller's agent. I don't represent anything on the buyer's side. I have nothing to do with their lender. I'm representing the seller. I called the buyer's agent and heard something that will just be a knife in the heart of a listing agent, especially the day before closing, saying, "Oh yeah, well, I haven't been able to get a hold of the lender for the past 2 weeks, so I really don't know what's going on."
And that's where it started.
And I did exactly what I just did, complete silence, because in my head I'm thinking, how in the world can you not know what's not going on without even letting us know, title know? You have not been able to get a hold of the lender. Buyer has not been able to get a hold of the lender. We have a huge problem. Where is the lender? So anyway, that's where I came in. This agent says to me, "I don't know what to do."
That's what we both did.
That's exactly what we did. So I said, with your permission, I will call the lender and we will try to find out what's happening. It was a complete mess. This particular loan officer, who is a vice president of his company, would not return phone calls, would not answer his phone, would not answer a text, would not respond by email. I went as far as to Facebook stalk him and tried to contact him through Messenger. No response. No one literally from the, I think it was 2 days later, he finally decides to send us a text message and say, or it was actually maybe even his processor that said, oh no, we're not going to close this until next week. We don't even have a clear to close. So anyway, that was the beginning. And it gets better.
We got it closed.
It gets better. We did get it closed, but what a hassle. I in my 32 years of real estate, I don't think I've ever had a transaction that there was certain points that I called Shawn Barry and I go, I don't know what to do now.
I've only been in this 9 years, and this was a first for me, so we were kind of...
I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Who do we call? We even went to their office, which is here local, and the lady locked the door and wouldn't let Shawn Barry in. I couldn't make this up. This literally happened to us on a transaction, and so anyway, so back to our agenda. What are some of the good questions agents should ask a lender?
Yes, and so after this closing, you and I had a conversation, and you said that now, given this experience, you are going to be asking some more maybe hard questions of the lenders. So
yes.
Based on that, and also based on my prior experience, I think one good caveat is not to trust every pre-approval letter that you get.
That's exactly right.
And like you mentioned before, if you get a pre-approval letter from one of the big box lenders or a lender who's well known in town, you can probably trust that they've done their homework. Back when I started in real estate was in 2009, and that was at the bottom of the market.
Yeah.
And back then it was every realtor was a mortgage broker and a realtor, and they were doing both and charging all these fees. And so the CFPB, which is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, came along, and you can no longer do that unless you have all these disclosures in place.
Right.
So a lot of those mortgage brokers, those mom and pop ones, went away. Now, because the market is coming back up, we're seeing them again. And that was our case here. We had a mortgage broker, and which they're not inherently bad. We work with a lot of great ones. Mm-hmm. But when you get those pre-approvals attached to your offers, ask the questions. Call the lender. Ask, like you said, do you have someone above you I can go to if there's a problem? Mm-hmm. Research the lender online. Look for reviews. A lot of times they'll get their friends or family to leave good reviews, but you might see something in there that may make you question something.
Right.
Also, like I touched on before, each different borrower has its own circumstances. So, for instance, I used to share space with a lender who specializes in working with self-employed borrowers. They have their own lending hurdles, and that's her specialty.
Right.
Also, in this particular case, this was over a $500,000 property, so
right.
We were now in what we call a jumbo loan status. They have their own lending requirements. Also, we have been doing a lot recently with teachers on down payment assistance loans. They have their own requirements. So unless you have a lender who knows each program well, another one we see a lot is VA. We're also seeing a lot of the rural development loans. So you have to find a lender that's good at that kind of thing.
Right.
And also ask, how does the borrower know this lender? Did they just get it because their agent said, this is my person, or do they currently bank with them? Are they family? Are they friends? How do they know them?
Yeah.
So a lot of those things you can kind of ferret out whether you may be in for a problem or not. And so as title, I know, and I think a lot of title companies do this too, it's not written anywhere, but we have a mental list of lenders that we've had some issues with. Mm-hmm. So if we see contracts come across with this particular pre-approval, we won't really come out and say it, but we'll kind of give the realtor a hint saying, hey, can you please get the person approved with any other lender but this person?
Right.
Because we know that it's going to be a problem.
Well, and I during this process, I mean, literally there were days, several days that we could get no update from anyone. And I mean, and we were doing things that you would not do in a normal transaction. We were calling the underwriter. We were calling the account executive at the mortgage company that was actually doing the mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
We were going through and we were doing things that typically you would never have to do, and you shouldn't have to do. You know, if you've got a loan officer that is doing their job and is proactive and calling people and giving updates, and you should never have to do what we did. I think if I go back and if I were to log the minutes that we were on three-way calls with just anyone who would talk to us, except for the loan officer, he never called, never. And when he did call, it was always giving us some kind of story. And I'm just going to go out and say that we caught him in several lies. And I typically will not call anyone a liar, but this guy literally lied to us. He was lying to our face. And the best one was towards the end, right before we kind of got our approval, Shawn and I are on a conference call with the loan exec that is got the file open, has it open, talking to us about what's going on. And I get a text at the same time from the loan officer saying, "Oh, no problem. I'm on the phone with them right now. We're clearing up all these issues." And I was like, okay. Well, and I called him a liar to his face, because I was like, you are not, because we are on a conference call as we speak with this person. So I don't really, I mean, we're all out there. There's just so much that we can do. I did have a lender, a reputable lender that we both work with, tell us that when you get that approval letter and when you call the lender to verify, you know, all the information, talk about the buyer, blah, 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 ask for the DU report. And see, up to this point, I didn't know that was something that I could ask for.
I didn't either.
And the DU report is going to tell you everything that you need to know about this buyer. And how, you know, I mean, if there's any issues, you're going to know about it right then. So, you know, for all my realtor listing friends out there, when you get an approval in, if it's a company that you know absolutely nothing about, I know that there's always problems with the online companies, you know, and, you know, as Shawn said, there's more and more of these mom and pop shops popping up everywhere, because now the market is good, and so they're coming back out of the woodwork, and they're doing it. And not saying that they're bad. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that it's unfortunate that we just got the bad apple, and Shawn and I did the job of the buyer's agent, the loan officer,
the processor, because she disappeared in the middle of all this also, and then popped her little head up on the day of closing. I don't know where she came from all of a sudden. I hope she had a good nap. That's, I think, what she was doing.
I'm gonna write an ebook, and I'm gonna put these experiences that I've had in this book, because I literally could not make this up. I was at a point to where, and then I'm trying to keep my seller in the deal, because they were already, I think he gave me a figure, the damages they had already occurred to this point was over $30,000, because they had moved out of their house. No, because if this loan officer had been upfront and honest with us, they would have never moved out of their house.
Correct.
They would have moved out of their house last weekend knowing that we were closing on Tuesday. They would not have moved out on June 10th or whenever it was they moved out, because no one let us know that there was a real problem. And so, if it hadn't been that I was working with Shawn Berry, I don't know. He was so proactive. And I think we literally, for the last probably, 3 weeks, our days were consumed with trying to get someone to give us answers. And I'm going to say, I wrote on Monday night, I was so frustrated. I had yelled and screamed and hollered at this guy to the point to now where he's not going to return any of my phone calls because he knows I'm going to choose his you-know-what out every time I get a hold of him. So I wrote a review on their company page on Google, and the very next morning, starting at 8:30, my phone started blowing up with the lady that locked Shawn Berry out of the office. Mm-hmm. And Shawn Berry and I get her on a conference call, and now she's all ready to do whatever it takes to help us. A little too late. Sorry, lady, you're done with me. And I am now researching how we can, because I know we as realtors, if we pull shenanigans like this, we will be brought before the grievance committee. We will have to make answers to our governing bodies. Why did you do this? Why didn't you answer your phone? Why did you mislead? We would have to give answers to that. So I am in the process of finding out where I report this fella, because you know what? He's a detriment to the community. He is damaging people every single day with his work ethic, and he is so not professional. And I'm gonna do him in. I'm gonna do whatever it takes so this guy does not hurt another consumer. And the buyer had already gotten an attorney. It was getting really ugly. And so anyway, the moral of this whole story is we as agents, especially listing agents, need to go a step further and not only be concerned with the buyer, but be concerned with the lender in the transaction. And if it's someone that you don't know, do your homework and ask for the DU report. Google them. Look for reviews. Go to the Better Business Bureau. Not that they're ever that might not even be in there. I've learned a huge lesson. And, we come across, in real estate, we come across things every day. And
we do. And I think that also underscores the importance of having a really good team behind you.
Right.
Because in this situation, you had the buyer continuously calling his agent. You had your sellers calling you as the agent. So you as agents are dealing with the brunt of the problem when you haven't created the problem. So trying to vet these people up front may save you a few gray hairs as you get toward closing. And it's not going to work every time, because sometimes you're going to have that sleeper like this one who it didn't work out very well. But you can usually, if you just get someone on the phone and talk to them and ask some questions, you can usually read, voice inflection or body language if you're meeting with them in person, and kind of get a sense of whether they're actually telling you the truth or not.
Well, and I'm going to say to the buyer's agents out there, a lot of this falls on you. Because me as a listing agent representing the seller, I don't know your buyer. I don't know what's going on. So you as a buyer's agent, if you're having problems with the lender, you need to contact us. Let us know that there's a problem. Don't wait till the day of closing and say, oh, well, no, we haven't been able to talk to the lender in 3 weeks.
That's correct. Yes.
So, it's a team effort. So if we all work together, hopefully, there's always going to be situations. Hopefully we won't have to go through the stress. And I was on the phone every single night with with the seller, the buyer's agent, Shawn Berry, not the lender because he never wanted to call us. Every single night since June 14th, I have done this. And it's ridiculous. It does not have to be that way. So, get a good team together that you can work with. Just go out there, do your homework on your lender, ask those questions that we just gave you, and hopefully everybody will have a good, successful closing.
That's the point. So, we did it. So,
we did it.
As a preview for next week, we've been talking a lot over the past, is this our 6th week doing this? I think it's 5th or 6th week.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about how title fits in to real estate transactions and how it fits into your team. What we haven't talked about is what is title insurance and what really do we offer to the transaction. So next week I'm going to break down for everybody what title insurance is. I can guarantee you it's not what you think it is. It's a lot more than you think it is, but we're going to just give a primer on who we are and why we're part of the transaction.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I hope you guys are enjoying these shows, and I hope that you're getting something out of it, and we're always open to suggestions. Let us know what you want to know about. I mean, as you can see, we're out there in the field every single day, and whenever we have experiences, we definitely will be telling you about them, because it's every day it seems like it's something new. And Shawn Berry just had a great idea. I think we're going to open a margarita stand in Key West. And what are we going to call it, Shawn Berry?
Frosty Dog.
Frosty Dog. And Doodle, my dog, will be our little mascot. And so if you're in the Keys, you might just see Shawn Berry and I down there peddling our frozen margaritas.
And we'll sell you a house.
And we'll sell you a house while we're there. So anyway, this is Lisa Hill and Shawn Berry.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for tuning in today, and we'll look forward to talking to you next week. Hope you have a great weekend. Be safe. Talk to you soon.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.